Welcome to 5 Start Weekly. Players are on the outbound train, but there are not a lot of names so far linked on the inbound side. We'll give you all our analysis on this week's news, all that and more, coming up.
Welcome to the show, 5 Start fam. I'm AJ, this is Tanner McLeod. Before we get into it, become a member of the notification squad by hitting the bell next to the subscribe button or hop over from Facebook and subscribe.
This segment is sponsored by The Crossing, a family-owned traditional steakhouse located in historic downtown Norcross, in the old train depot, serving mouth-watering steaks, seafood, and more with the quality of a fine dining establishment complemented by a casual setting.
It may be the off season, but we are busy collecting all of the juicy news goodness for you guys, and so here we go. Let's get started with the news. And first up is that the MLS All-Stars are going to be playing the Liga MX All-Stars. That was just announced today. We are filming this on a Wednesday. And July 29th at Bank of California Stadium, LAFC's stadium. That should be at least probably, eyeball-wise, a lot better than what it has been in the past. So.
Well, I think the Juventus MLS All-Star Game in Atlanta, maybe not for the score, because it was a decent score. I think it went to penalties, though, right? If I remember, I don't know why I'm not remembering off the top of my head. Yeah. But this past year's game in the pouring down rain and against Diego Simeone Atletico Madrid, that was never going to be as much fun. And where it was getting held, we'll leave it at that as far as city jokes go. But I think Bank of California Stadium, LAFC, it makes sense. The only negative, I think, is that they could have sold probably 3 times the amount of tickets that place holds, with it being LA and having such a strong Latin American, Mexican American heritage there in LA. But yeah, it's something it changes the style of it up a little bit.
Right. Something that they've been trying to do for a long time is to marry the two leagues somehow. Of course, you have the Nations League and
Campeones Cup.
And all that type of stuff. And so it's just something that they've been having in the works. The two presidents got together, or commissioners rather, and they finally concocted something that would probably bring the maximum eyeballs for a summer event. And they had the tournaments, of course, and this is, I think, a good step in that direction of getting more eyeballs on MLS. That's probably a good thing for not only LA United, but for the rest of the league. So I think it's a good thing. Is it going to be the most exciting thing for every single person that follows MLS? Maybe not, but it at least brings more exposure to some of the Liga MX teams as well. So,
and there are some really good players down there, so it should be some really good games. There's going to be a lot of talent on display on that field.
Yeah, there probably will be a lot more kind of interspersing of talent between the leagues going forward because of people seeing I want that player, then that team, your team, might go out and get them. So it'll be very interesting going forward. But next bit of news is that Atlanta United have announced the league announced their first match of the season, and it is an away game, and it is at Nissan Stadium against Nashville SC. So it will be their opener, and it's going to be, I think, a very tasty away day for a lot of Atlanta United fans. I think they're very stoked. We're stoked. I think a lot of people have already, booked their Airbnbs maybe already, and we've yet to do that, but we probably need to get on it. Crap. But very stoked. February 29th. There was maybe an idea that the season was going to start earlier, but it really hasn't. It's really about the same as last season.
And that may still even get pushed back. Who knows if there's a work stoppage.
Exactly. So January 31st is still that earmark of, this CBA needs to get done before then, otherwise there will be a work stoppage. And so
it'd be weird because it's like work stoppage in MLS, but we're also trying to play Champions League. So
got it. So they would train all the way up until the point of when they can't. And
does that mean you'd have to forfeit? We'll talk about that all when we
get there.
Ideally, let's get that sorted so we can play the Champions League.
Yeah, there's a lot of money to lose. A lot of money to lose.
And MLS would have a lot of eggs on its face if the teams can't play in the Champions League.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that in the coming weeks that there's going to be an agreement.
But that game's going to be at Nissan Stadium as opposed to the baseball stadium that was played in last time. Yeah. That was pouring rain. The pitch was terrible. The ball stopped in a few places. No, this is going to be in the Tennessee Titans Stadium. They're probably, if they're smart, going to open up the whole damn thing because it's their first match in MLS. I have a feeling that there is going to be a lot of Atlanta United fans at this
that's
game.
as many as they can allocate to us in terms of how many of us we can go. So
That's in one section, but also I think there's going to be a lot of Atlanta United fans in the crowd anyway, because there's a lot of people who watch us, who come to Atlanta United games, who are Atlanta United fans, who live in Nashville.
Exactly.
Like, I interact with multiple who are like, yeah, we're not changing even though we live in Nashville.
Right.
We're Atlanta United fans first.
And then
sorry, Nashville.
some that are, and I'm just like, really?
Why would you change?
Yeah, it's like, do you really think that Nashville is going to be a little bit more successful than?
I get that they're at home, but like you could still get a season ticket and go watch them and be like, yeah, I'm glad that you guys are doing something. But when you play Atlanta United, I hope you lose a lot.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that Darren Eales definitely took this time to stick the boot in on the rivalry with our rival Orlando City. And I think a lot of people are kind of pointing to the fact of, will this game in effect kill the rivalry between Atlanta United and Orlando City? It's a 4-hour drive, and I plan on going to every away game we play at Nashville for the foreseeable future as long as I can make it. So I think I'm pretty much in the majority of a lot of fans like that. I think we're both going to try to make that away as many times as we can. So yeah, it probably put the nail in the coffin on that one.
Yeah, and I think most people don't want to go to Orlando anyway, so
and they're terrible, and their colors are awful, and they haven't beaten us in 3 seasons.
Exactly. So, but anyway, if there's a good name or nickname for this potential Derby Cup, leave them in the comments below. We're interested in seeing what you say.
Like something involving chicken.
Yeah, or dirty salad or whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Lemon pepper wet versus Nashville hot.
Yeah, there we go. Not too bad. But that's a long name that you can't really
it's not. It's just
on a cup, but
the Southern chicken. Southern
chicken. Yeah. Well,
I feel like Kentucky Fried Chicken would get involved somehow and be mad.
Yeah, they don't have a team though, so Louisville, I guess.
They should sponsor Louisville City. Never mind.
Maybe.
I digress.
Anyway, but moving on from that. So yes, we didn't get to cover it last week because it happened literally when it came out, our podcast anyway. And so yes, Darlington Nagbe was traded to Columbus Crew finally after this kind of the worst kept secret pretty much in MLS. But yes, it was for $1.425 million in allocation money and a 2020 international roster spot. Never worry about international roster spots with Atlanta United. But I mean, it's obviously very sad to see such a great player, such a great person, such a great teammate go, a vital cog in how we play, go to a team that I don't know if they're really going to be doing anything, but I mean, they could, but really right now the Ohio teams are just it's a black hole, like most of how it is in Ohio usually.
It's not ideal for those Ohio teams. I think what's interesting here is he was traded, like you said, for $1.425 million in allocation money. I posed the question on Twitter right around the time it happened, and it was, if there wasn't trades in MLS, how much money do you think Darlington Nagbe would have been worth in a transfer fee if, say, Columbus had to pay for his rights as you would in any other league? I figured you probably could put it somewhere around at least $5 million or so, or is $5 million, would it be more or less than $5 million?
29, 30.
Yeah, I mean, I think $5 million would be a fair enough fee for him.
But in MLS, he could probably play like 5 or 6 more seasons.
So it could be even more than that.
I would say, yeah, probably about like $8 million probably or so.
Basically, the point being, a lot more than what we got for him because MLS rules are kind of stupid as far as this is concerned. Like, if you can trade that amount of money to get a player of Darlington Nagbe's quality, that is a lot maybe money.
But it's Garber bucks, and so that's the difference. Is that this amount of allocation money can allow us to get maybe what's the likening of this? Maybe 2 or 3. What we were paying him, Julian Gressels. In that.
Or
at
least starting off with 1 Julian Gressel would be nice.
Yes, but that's a separate thing altogether. But so yeah, and the reason why, at least speculative, seems to have been revealed by his wife Felicia Nagbe on Instagram in her goodbye to Atlanta post. And pretty much to summarize, she is feeling overwhelmed, feeling like a helicopter mom because she's got 3 kids. She's going everywhere and trying to figure out how to, just be a living person, really. And so, I think Ohio with Nagbe's parents, her parents, just the, her family and friend base, I think definitely provides a lot more comfort probably for their whole family. And so she's not kind of strained. And so it makes sense where Nagbe and that earlier season debacle where he had to come home earlier from spring training or just the preseason rather. And that whole ordeal makes a lot more sense now because she was probably feeling some strain when he was out there in California. And, I think that in essence, I don't blame Nagbe's at all for this situation.
No, I think the way that they handled themselves, how classy of a player he is, both on and off the pitch. He did help Atlanta lift the championship and 2 more trophies in addition to that. He gave everything that he had to the club, and it's not like he was someone that was actively in social media or in the media talking about wanting to move, agitating for a move. He put his head down. He was a true professional. And she also talked about how it was a dream ever since he got drafted to play in Columbus or in Ohio, but preferably Columbus because Cincinnati obviously wasn't a team when he was drafted. But, to be able to just have family and friends drive around or call them just so they can show up to help or whatever it is. So you totally get it. It's understandable. And you wish him nothing but the best except for the possibly 2 times a year that they play Atlanta United.
Exactly. Yeah. And exactly. And he rarely scores in that sense, so hopefully, in that he doesn't score against us.
Maybe he gives the ball away a lot in that game. There you go. That's very un-Nagbe-like.
He can play as well as he wants, just don't score or assist, and we're good.
Fair enough. Okay,
good. But anyway, so the 2019 MLS Expansion Draft also happened this week. And Nagbe was off that list now because he had gone to the Crew, and there was this whole list of players, which we'll get to in a second. But yes, Brandon Vasquez was chosen off of that list of the unprotected ones. And then he was, so it was by maybe future rival Nashville SC. Then he was promptly traded to FC Cincy, which, like you said on Twitter, is probably a cruel twist of fate, but he does get probably a lot of playing time now.
We got a lot of playing time in Nashville. I mean, at least it's not a rival, but
right.
It's Cincinnati.
Yeah, but I think they have a very decent fan base as well. That at least on their opener last season, really showed that they're here to at least try to make some moves, at least in the fandom department. So
and they have completely overhauled both their coaching staff and their backroom staff and the board level. They've done all of that new with football directors.
So they're just on the Minnesota United route of
taking a few years and then getting to be good.
So and maybe he is
much worse.
Yeah, maybe he's a step in the right direction for them. I think he is a player that will be missed, at least definitely in our depth departments, at least definitely when we're playing in the U.S. Open Cup. He just owns that tournament in scoring wise, and so I think it will be a miss because he offered something like a different look to what we are used to. So, but so in that kind of protected and unprotected, I think brings some really interesting insight. And to go through that 12 that was protected, of course, Joseph, Barco, PT, Tito, Gressel, LGP, Remedi, Franco, Guzan, Hindman, of course, and then you have Miles Robinson, who it was speculation back and forth, was Generation Adidas, did he really graduate from it or did he not? Yes, it seems like he did, and so he was a person that obviously, if he graduated from it, you keep him as well. And then I think the biggest surprise is another person that was a Generation Adidas player, Mo Adams. He was protected on that list, and so very, very interesting. I think way higher on the maybe radar than I think most of us thought, because I think he's a guy that we gave up some a little bit of asset to get him to the Chicago Fire, but I think for him to be protected, that's a surprise, and so he's maybe highly rated more so than we thought. I think with Larry getting a little older, us needing to, kind of a defensive midfielder really on the cheap. He's a guy that can be developed and maybe
at least a ball winner,
Exactly.
a bulldog type of guy who you just man mark somebody or have him just kick the heck out of the ball.
pretty much right now he's still, I think, a Eric Rometti light even to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's good enough on the ball yet, but so I think that really was a risk keeping him on the protected list. But maybe he might have been chosen, and we didn't really want to spend assets on that, perhaps.
But the exposed list is interesting. I mean, I think interesting in a way, but also a lot of these guys, I think, to note, are expected, but some of them are out of contract. So Mikey Ambrose, John Gallagher, which I found kind of interesting, but I understand because he's been doing well on loan for everything that I've understood. Jose Hernandez, Alec Can, Kevin Kratz, Jeff Lorenowitz, Justin Meerum, Brendan Moore, Luis Fernando, who he just recently signed to the first team, Michael Parkhurst, retiring, Dion Pereira, Florentine Pogba, Breck Shea, and then, of course, Brandon Vasquez. And on that list, obviously, we already knew that Breck Shea had a massive injury, so he wasn't going to get most likely drafted.
And he was on a one-year contract.
Correct.
So
Michael Parkhurst was retiring. Justin Meerum's contract was expiring. Jeff Lorenowitz's contract was expiring. I believe Kevin Kratz's contract was expiring. And I'm pretty sure Mikey Ambrose's contract was on a 1 year as well.
Yeah.
And Jose Hernandez had already announced his departure in a way.
And Mikey Ambrose really, pretty much said his goodbye over the weekend as well. And so, it was one of those things, if they chose him, then, you could get him for free anyway. So it was going to be, I think, narrowed down to a couple people. And it was probably going to be Flo Pogba or Brandon Vasquez. And they chose Brandon Vasquez. But, Dion Pereira, maybe you could, but I think he's just unproven. You just can't kind of use a draft pick on that, because I think some of the guys that you saw, there maybe some are a little bit unproven, but I think they've at least maybe shown more end product, or at least proven some things in MLS. You gotta look at the guys that don't have expiring contracts, and it was a very small pool of players on there, like you said, that you couldn't pick up for free in a few weeks' time. And Alec Can was never going to be chosen above Tyler Miller or something like that.
No, exactly.
Either, so,
and Brandon Vasquez, he has a higher potential and higher ceiling than a lot of
20
those
years
players,
old,
and he's a big guy, decent
6'3".
touch. So it's like it's not shocking, it's unfortunate, but that is the nature of MLS. But to my knowledge, this now means that Atlanta United will be protected in next year's expansion draft. So no players from Atlanta United will be taken in next year's expansion draft, which will feature Austin, I believe.
Right.
So that's a positive.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in previous years we had worked out a deal, and maybe there was a kind of handshake deal, maybe like kind of internet handshake with Paul McDonough of Inter Miami.
But don't take our players.
Yeah, but Nashville SC probably didn't get the memo, and they were just screw that, and we're gonna trade him as well to FC Cincy. But
I hate to see it.
Yeah. But anyway, so next piece of news is that Brad Guzan had a couple starts for the U.S. men's national team and a couple wins. So they've at least done a little bit better than what they've had
Canada
recently.
and Cuba.
Yeah.
Never would have expected that.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
Yeah. But it's a good showing for him, and he's seemingly healthy as well, so no big issues there. Ezequiel Barco also started twice for the Argentina U23s. He scored a penalty, good on him, and also seemingly healthy, so that's good. And even before that, I think he was at Disneyland or in Orlando. Is it Disneyland?
Disney World in Orlando.
Yeah. Anyway, but I should know that, but no.
I need to go down there for the whole Star Wars Beat Galaxy's Edge thing. I'm on a Star Wars nerd trip right now.
Oh yeah,
because
Mandalorian, of course,
and the whole thing.
Exactly.
I'm a nerd.
Yeah, no. I'm enjoying the Mandalorian as well. I mean, it's one of the better series of in the Star Wars realm. But if you're getting caught up in that as well, let us know in the comments below.
Hashtag Baby Yoda.
Yeah, hashtag Baby Yoda. Oh my God. But anyway, so next piece of news is that MLS is no longer going to have the MLS SuperDraft starting in 2020, where the likes of Julian Gressel and Miles Robinson had all that pomp and circumstance when they got drafted. It will now be a conference call and a live stream via their social media. And I guess pretty much like you saw for the expansion draft, it'll be in that type of territory. I think it makes sense because, grabbing all of the executives and head coaches and all to a kind of thing that isn't really bringing as much value to the league as much anymore is just kind of silly. So
we didn't even keep our two. Well, I guess one came back eventually.
Yeah, Amir Bashti finally came back, and then
another one
when
wasn't.
Asiedu got dropped, it was a little perplexing. It might be the age thing. It might be just where It could be a number of things, but it was
Our first draft, much better.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing too. I mean, like the second draft, Gordon Wild, I think is still killing it in USL. I mean, he is a guy I think that could play at our USL level, but maybe the likes of a Jackson Conway, the Patrick Okonkwo's of the world, maybe even Lagos Kunga are kind of in that territory of someone that we want to keep more so than someone that, yeah, exactly. And so and plus the whole international spot type of thing is just so but I mean and even a John Gallagher, it's someone that was playing as a defender after we converted him from a striker. It's very interesting, but I think at the end of the day it is a good move to kind of start phasing this into less importance. But and also Atlanta United too, speaking of, they made a move, their first move of the off season. So Stephen Glass and co have signed forward Amadou Maki Diop. He's from Dakar, Senegal, and that's via the school that he went to, Radford University in Virginia, and there's a lot of V's in there that trip me up, but yeah, he's a 6'3" forward. Seems like a big, tall, strapping lad that has scored 9 goals in 11 matches in the first year he was there, and unfortunately was injured last season. But it seems like a good little flyer to pick up, and we'll see what he does for Atlanta too. And maybe he's kind of a guy that in the kind of pipeline of kind of big target men that we are trying to go through the pipeline as a different look. Maybe he can do something and catch your eye. But that does it for the news, and that gets us to our buy or sell segment. And simply we say if we buy or sell an Atlanta United topic that we put forth. And first one is Nashville and Inter Miami will provide more competition than Orlando City. Buy or sell?
I'm going to buy mostly on the Inter Miami side. I think that once they get everything together, they've clearly made it known that they're going to be one of the big boys in the MLS. They're going to hire a big name manager. They're going after big name players. They're linked to pretty much every aging South American that's been good in Europe for the last 10 years. Luis Suarez, Edison Cavani, that sort of thing. So you have them. I think very much they're going to be an MLS Cup challenger in the near future. Unlike Orlando. Nashville's interesting. I'm not sure what they've done with some of their offseason moves and building their roster. I think they could be taking more of a Minnesota approach as well, but they seem to have a better hold on things and a better front office setup than Orlando currently does. Not to mention it's going to be a much closer rivalry in terms of geographic distance, so I think it'll be a much more lively rivalry because of that. I think it might have a little bit more to offer, but I think they might be more of a slow burner in terms of their development as a team. But we'll see. But I think as far as being better than Orlando, I mean, make the playoffs once and you're better than Orlando, so it's not really saying much. But in terms of more competition to us, and so I think Miami definitely. I think Miami's going to be competing on our level, Atlanta's level, and the top level of MLS a lot quicker, if not in year one. I think that Nashville, I think that they can get there, but I don't think they'll be a year one playoff team. I think Inter Miami is a year one playoff team. I buy as well that they will provide more competition. And I think, obviously for the reasons that you just mentioned about Inter Miami, but Nashville SC, I think, Orlando City, us being undefeated against them, I think it's going to be a little harder to be undefeated against any team. And Nashville SC, I think, just are by way of just maybe Murphy's Law that we're gonna probably at least maybe drop one to them earlier than in Orlando City. I think it's going to happen. And plus, I think by virtue of that, they probably can bring more people and maybe, bring more of a factor in terms of, at least at our stadium. Well, it's funny, I feel like it could be a bigger rivalry, but also a friendlier rivalry. It doesn't seem like there's ill will that can still build. There's no bad blood yet. There's clearly bad blood between Atlanta and Orlando, mostly one-sided. But there doesn't seem to be as much bad blood between Nashville and Atlanta. And I feel like it could be a good rivalry on the pitch, although, whatever happens could end up turning into bad blood. But I think it's going to be a really big party for that first game. There's going to be a lot of people coexisting because, again, there's a lot of crossover there, I think, for a lot of people in Nashville. So it's going to be pretty fun at the beginning. Something might happen to And then something might happen. And then it might all blow up, and I'll look like an idiot. Okay, that would be the first time. But I think it's also interesting the trajectories of both because Inter Miami as a team that didn't have a USL team essentially because you have the Miami Fusions and other
Miami FCs that kind of permeate the area, so that there are like existent fans, but it essentially is going the Atlanta United route.
Very much.
And then Nashville SC is going a lot of the other routes of like Minnesota United or Orlando to a degree, but
Cincinnati.
Yeah, and so I think they are going to probably be in that more of that territory, and that's it's interesting to see if who gets to the playoffs first. I think we probably have a good guess of which one, but next one goes to so 2 or more of our homegrowns will make a large impact in 2020. Buy or sell?
Sell. I think if there's going to be any, it'll be one, and I think that would be George Bello. He obviously had a very disappointing 2019, I think it's safe to say. There was a lot of hype and pressure coming into the season, and he had a few injuries, and he never made a first-team appearance after the first game against Herediano. So, I think that there's a lot of room for him to grow in 2020. It's a position that there's not a lot of depth at, and unfortunately, I don't really see anyone else in the 2s right now who are going to make that step forward, and I include Andrew Carlton in that.
I mean, so I sell as well. I mean, 2 or more, that's where it's tough, but I think there are some players that I think could maybe make an impact on the kind of cup runs that we have as well. So maybe Alagos Kunga is ready. Maybe maybe Carlton does step it up. But I think larger impact and overall wise, I think it's difficult to see anyone beyond George Bello, because he is the heir apparent essentially to the left wing back position. I mean, maybe Patrick Kwanko takes another step into his development. But
I think Jackson Conley could be a player, but I don't think next season. I still think he's a player that sits 2-3 years off, two before he's involved in the first team. Like I could see him involved in like a 2021, but I think next year will still be an exclusive year for the 2s for him, so he can try to work on his goal scoring, being a bit more consistent in front of goal. And if he can, put together another double-digit goal season, then it's like, hey, then he's pushing a bit for the first team. But I still think his age and everything, he's got one more development to do. But he's a player that I think could potentially break through on the first team stage at some point in time in the future.
I think George Campbell also is someone that could have an outside shout, but I think more in kind of the tournament runs and whatnot. But I think it's just, I think he has probably too much work on the defensive side yet. But I mean, it could come together really quickly. Maybe he just learns so much from being around Miles Robinson. That
we saw how quickly he developed. That kind of just happened. It was like he was a player, but Miles Robinson was also older, went to college, that wore out. So
definitely different. But so last topic in buy or sell, we will find a Darlington Nagbe replacement in the league.
So, you will not find another Darlington Nagbe in Major League Soccer. He was the invisible pink unicorn of that type of style player in MLS. He is the only one that can do that. And I think to find a player to be a direct replacement for him, you will not find them plying their trade in Major League Soccer right now.
I definitely sell that as well. I mean, you can read this question in different ways as well. I mean, direct replacement, I mean, definitely not, but maybe someone that can at least, maybe provide more goal scoring and maybe provide more box-to-box ability even, where there's more goals and assists, and then, maybe some more tackling than Darlington Nagbe does, but maybe less control. Maybe. And in that territory, then possibly, but still, definitely so.
He's just that good. Like, he's just...
It's hard.
He's the best at that in the league, so...
Shadow DP, shadow MVP. I mean, just a tough guy to replace. But that does it for buy or sell and gets us to the mailbag. You guys send in these questions through IG story and at times Facebook as well. But so please keep sending your questions and we might answer your questions in the future. First question comes from M Teams 2003. With Brandon gone, who do y'all think we are going to get as our backup striker? Tough to say here.
They're not in this. I think the one thing that we can definitely clear up is I don't think that the backup striker next season is currently on any Atlanta United roster, whether that be the 1s or the 2s. I think that Atlanta United will find a player and sign a player to fit this role. And I think, as it will be with a lot of these answers as far as personnel goes, just because of the uncertainty of the CBA, because we aren't still aware of what the rules are going to be. I still think it's difficult to know what you're going to find. I don't think it's going to be a highly paid player, because you have Joseph Martinez, but you still have to find someone who maybe is a bit more experienced, has knocked the ball into the net a few times that if a Joseph was to go down, you could count and rely upon.
Right.
But to find that can prove a bit difficult.
Right, and so that is the casualty of losing a Vasquez, is that he does have MLS experience now, and he got that all with us, but he is a guy that also provides some different looks and hit the back of the net at times when he was started. So now we will have to find someone as cheap as he is, not that he was like super cheap, but someone of his level or greater, and that is kind of difficult in MLS terms of trying to find, do you swing for the fences, or that CBA is super.
Because you kind of want to avoid another Kenwyne Jones situation, who experienced player has scored goals in the Premier League, so he's an experienced player who scored at a high level,
but he
just didn't work out. It was just his knees were shot. It did not work out at Atlanta United, and you were paying him a decent chunk of money. So again, it's if the CBA is opened a lot more, then I think if you can afford it, you definitely try to get a striker who's not as good as Joseph, but who can push Joseph, because that's always good to have that competition for places, and that you could rotate someone in. But
and if you need to play two up top as well, then you have someone that can do something different than what Joseph Martinez does as well, and so
that'd be very dangerous.
Yeah, so hopefully we can. It's just difficult to say. I mean, let's just say somebody. I don't know. Very tough, right? Put us on the spot like that. We'll just move on, because it's so difficult to know who is available and for what type of allocation money around the league. But if we bring someone else outside of the league, it's also how much are they? I mean, we got a lot of money in Nagbe allocation money, but it's tough.
Yeah.
So anyway, but sorry to kind of skirt from that, but it's just really difficult to give a clear-cut answer on that. But next question comes from Lawson Say 04. What kind of formation do you think we will run next season? I want 4 at the back, but FDB likes 3 or 5.
It's kind of weird because I've always been an advocate of the back 4. I mean, not to get nerdy again, when I play Football Manager, I play with the back 4. That's how I've always enjoyed watching my teams play. That being said, it seems through the seasons we've had so far that a lot of the personnel, even though there will be changeover, is suited to playing with a back 3. LGP, I think, is suited to playing in a back 3. I think Miles Robinson has shown he can play in either, but he's very well suited to playing in a back 3. Franco Escobar can play that role as a right center back, although he is better as an out-and-out right back or a right wing back. I think that George Bello would be better as a left wing back because there's slightly less defensive responsibility there, but also it affords you to have a strong platform in midfield. When you have a player like Joseph Martinez up top, you can afford to maybe have him play on his own by himself. So I think this team already feels very comfortable with a 3-5-2. It will depend upon the roster moves, I think, that you see, but I think the 3-5-2 is at least going to be what this team starts with going forward next season, because that's what the majority are familiar with, and as we saw this season, that's what this team plays the best at, is with the back 3.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but yeah, it's also, FDB doesn't prefer, I think, 3-man at the back. I think he prefers a 4-3-3. I think that's kind of, I think, like we've mentioned before, it brings a lot of balance.
And it's very Dutch.
And
that's
it's very Dutch.
much the Ajax, Louis van Gaal, everyone ahead of him, Rinus Michels. That whole thing is very 4-3-3 because balance.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I think he probably prefers that, and if you can find the right players to find that type of system to utilize that, then he will. But yeah, I think early on, we'll still probably employ a lot more 3 until... Yeah, he's really, I think, churns through the roster and finds, the players that he, I think, fits his system. But yeah, I think it's definitely still 3 at the back. And so next question comes from eLogical11. Who do you play from the first team or the 2s to play in Nagbe's position? If we're going as the roster as is and no one else is leaving, it's, obviously Emerson Hyndman is the kind of guy that was brought in to maybe do something different than what he does, but also, I mean, be a guy that kind of at least plays the position as a central midfielder. And, in terms of that, I think that, sure, he can at least be there in his spot, but will he replicate it? No. And so, it will be, he will score more goals than Jonathan Nagbe does, but he won't offer as much control. So,
because either him or Remedi, and I don't think there's anyone on the twos, no offense, that can step up and fill that role.
And then Kevin Kratz is like kind of the Nagbe light.
But I don't think he'll be on the squad next year.
Yeah, I mean, as injured as he was this season, I don't think he.
And the money that he has tied in his contract, which I think believe his contract might be expiring after this season. I'm not sure.
I think so. And then he's also, I think, 31. He
has a great free kick, but you don't play a guy to take a great free kick.
Yeah, it's
especially when you have Barco and Pity to a degree.
That's true. So next question comes from Backdrop Soccer. If Barco gets sold, who are some possible DP replacements? A strong midfielder or a winger? So also difficult to say in terms of when he's going to get sold, but definitely it won't, I think, be in the January window. I think it's more likely in the summer window because you don't have the kind of sell-on clause that is with Independiente. So that for one, I think he hasn't proven himself enough to really warrant, I think, a larger transfer fee than what we paid for him just quite yet. He needs to produce at a really, really high level here to really catch the eye of some really, I think, bigger club that will pay those type of wages and pay that kind of transfer fee. So that's the important part there. And so, at least summer 2020 if he gets sold. But in terms of replacements, I mean, that's where it's in the middle of the season. It's difficult to really do that. I mean, we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot. It's just not wise unless we really had a ready-made replacement and I guess start up the transfer sagas then if you're going to do that. So, but
I mean, I think the dream scenario would be like a Quintero from River Plate because he's 26. He's coming off of a serious injury. He is an incredible player. He has outrageous skill. He picked up the number 10 shirt from Pity Martinez and like it was nothing. I mean, literally just YouTube his highlights. He's an incredible player, but he's a player that has a lot of links to Europe. Although there have been recent reports of a strong offer from an MLS club. I don't believe that's Atlanta United for what it's worth. I believe that's probably Inter Miami or someone along those lines. So there have been rumors connecting him to MLS, and obviously if you have the money, Atlanta is a club that has the money to pay for that type of player, and there's a very strong connection, I believe, between River Plate and Atlanta United. I think the biggest thing with Barco, why both of us agree that he won't be leaving this offseason, I think had he not gotten injured after the U20 World Cup and been able to build upon his performances there from that he had at the beginning of the season through the U20 World Cup and through the rest of the season, then maybe you'd have been talking about a departure in the coming season. As of yet, he hasn't put an entire season together at the first team level, minus his season Independiente, and even that wasn't like a full season consistently. He was great at the end of the season. It was pivotal in their Copa Sudamericana win.
But stats-wise,
he wasn't outrageous. It was potential still. Mm-hmm. Teams in Europe will need to see him have a consistent season with his stats and his performances throughout an entire calendar or season year to want to spend the money that Atlanta United will want to receive for his services. You're talking at least $20 million, I believe, that Atlanta United will want, especially off the back of what they got from Miguel Almiron. So you're looking at a figure that he has to really produce, and he hasn't done that just yet, which is why it could be a summer if he comes out swinging and is incredible in the first half of the year. But I think both of us, our guts is if you see him moving, it would be a January 2021 off the back of a hopefully fantastic 2020 season with Atlanta United.
Right. But to humor this question, I think, if we were to replace him, if he did get sold, a strong midfielder probably would be the DP level player that we need to get.
Because you're trying to replace a Nagbe. And if you can find a DP level midfielder that you can pay a lot of money to do a job there, there's not a lot of high level out and out central midfielders. And you've got some very talented attacking players already on the squad.
Definitely. Next question comes from a few bands and Keaton Thomas 61, who pretty much kind of had a very similar question. What positions do we need to address this offseason? Depth at every position,
a lot.
Pretty much.
I think Felipe Cardenas had a tweet about it yesterday. You're looking at least one center back, both fullback positions, one if not two central midfielders, a winger, and a backup striker. I think this offseason, there's still going to be probably more departures, possibly not at the first team as in first starting 11 level. Mm-hmm. But I think that you're looking at the busiest summer you've had since the roster got built.
Or I think busiest winter.
Busiest winter, that you've had since the roster got built. I think you'll see 7 to 8 players signed this offseason because in terms of players going out, you have Nagbe going out, who you could replace with 1, possibly 2. You have Parkhurst. You have a Mikey Ambrose, most likely a Breck Shea, a Brandon Vasquez. Justin Miram, I don't believe, is coming back. I don't know if I mentioned Darlington Nagbe already. So you're already looking at 6, 7 players right there.
Tito Villalba maybe
Tito
as
Villalba.
well. I mean,
So that's a lot of players that'll be on the out. So you have to replace those players because all of them were involved in the first team minute, getting first team minutes.
some of them may be back, but
Yeah.
it is also, I mean, we have to find how it works within the roster structure. It's just,
Which we still don't know.
Yeah, and so, definitely it is, it hasn't ramped up quite yet, but I think it will definitely ramp up.
I think
quite
once
soon.
we get going into December, because November, December was really when the Barco saga and the Pitti saga really started to get wild. Well, we're in November, but like December, I think that's what's going to happen. Also, as more and more starts leaking out and getting worked out with the CBA, these teams are going to want to be making their moves in January. They want to get this stuff done. January will be a crazy month, but I think as December pulls along, we'll definitely start getting those rumors because Atlanta is one of the biggest clubs in the league, and we're a team that agents, even if they aren't planning on sending their clients here, will leak stuff and link their players to Atlanta United because they know they can get moves for their player or pay raises somewhere else. So the rumor mill will get going. It just hasn't gotten going yet, but once it has, that'll be a lot of fun and a lot of madness. Because we've had 2 crazy transfer sagas the last 2 seasons, which means we're due for another one.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was 2 for 1 really because of Miggy and PT in the same offseason. So, next question comes from Danny Phantom with 2 N's and 2 Y's.
I like that show.
Yeah. ATL aren't about signing aging superstars, but if they were to bring one, who would you like?
I think I've touched on this before. Despite the fact of who he plays for, I would take a David Silva in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I love David Silva. He's a classy player, despite the fact that he plays for the shit half of Manchester.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think, I mean, he's a guy that at least probably is in the conversation for player of the decade in the Premier League for sure. That's a great shout. I'm trying to stall because I can't think of who my guy is, I think, because, I mean, it's really tough. I mean, for me, I would maybe try to lean towards an Arsenal player that is on the aging side of it then, but I don't think he really fits in the system. I mean, maybe, but I mean, in a 4-3-3 or like replacing PT, okay, maybe, but it just doesn't really quite work within the system. Maybe I'm thinking too like logistically. Where
if he wasn't, well, he'll never move. But like, you take a Santi Cazorla in a heartbeat.
I would take Santi Cazorla in a heartbeat. Because I mean, he already moved from England because I mean, basically he's on the kind of downslope of his career. English wise, I mean, he's pretty decent, but it's not like really.
He can't do the running anymore.
Yeah, he can't do the running anymore. He'll be a deep lying playmaker if anything. But still, I would watch him.
Santi Cazorla could just ping. Basically, if anyone played with a high line against Atlanta United and Santi Cazorla was in the Atlanta United team, he would whatever Julian Gressel does, it'd be that times 2. Joseph would score 40 goals.
And left foot.
Joseph would score 40 goals, and 25 of those assists would be from Santi Cazorla.
And then he'd also never miss a penalty. And
Nope.
then he, like, every free kick, every corner, you want him to take it. But then, at the sake of what? Maybe some players developing? I think this is where it's just implausible for an aging superstar to come in. So, but good shout. Thank you for, jogging my memory on that one. Oh my god. But so next one is Green Eggs and Cam. What color do you want the new away kit for 2020 to be? I want gold with 2 Ds.
I'm guessing he's like doing like the gold member, like.
Gold.
Gold.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But I think it's already been kind of like semi-leaked already that it's going to be kind of similar to the King Peach in that it's mostly probably white or white-ish. And then it's got the gold trim. So, it's probably going to be that. But, if we had our pick of the lot, what would you do?
I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say.
Yeah? Okay. Yep. He knows too much and will not say anything. So, I will speculate that I want something black with a little bit of trim of red, maybe.
Is that too close to the primary though? If
But
both are black.
Yeah, but I know
this one's more like the current. It's all their stars and
I kind of like if it's like an all black out kit,
Yeah.
and then maybe a little hint of red. Like, I don't know. Hey, for me, I feel like
the league looks very Real Madrid.
Yeah, exactly. And so
I do not like Real Madrid. And I know you don't like Real Madrid, so.
Oh well, but some people do, and so
they'll be happy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you have like long-standing Georgia Tech fans that are biting their tongue on our red and black kits essentially, and so if they can deal with it, then I can deal with kind of Real Madrid inspired colors.
Yeah.
But last question comes from Facebook on with Mitchell McGirt. Where in your minds do you think Carlton stands now with United? Is he still in the doghouse with Frank de Boer and the front office? Does he have a shot at getting back in the mix for the full team, or is he a United 2 player again? Does he get traded? It's interesting. It's an interesting question. Thank you for the question.
I think he did himself a lot of good because he played well for the twos at the end of the season.
Stretch, yeah.
He got his head down and he really started putting in some good performances for the twos and scoring some good goals. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how he handles himself this offseason. I think that if there's any off-the-field issues with him at any point in time, I think he's done. I think that would be the end of him in Atlanta United. But I think he's definitely going to get a chance within the preseason. He's going to have to show up and work his tail off and get his head down and really try to impress Frank de Boer and the other coaches during the offseason and in the preseason when they get back together for training. If he can do that, there's going to be an opportunity for him to play with the first team, which I think a lot of people are pulling for him and want to see him, succeed with the first team and get those minutes and develop into a first team player, being in Atlanta, local, being the first homegrown player. There's a lot of pressure on him to do that, but I think he's going to I think the season will be his, though I say last chance, but I think it will be because the professional game is very cutthroat and very difficult. And if you can't cut it and you can't get it done, then teams are going to let you go. So I think he'll get his chance, but it's on him to prove it and make sure that he takes advantage of it. And if he can, then we'll see what Andrew Carlton can do for the first team.
Yeah, I mean, I think, he is kind of I want to say victim. That's maybe a little harsh, but I think he is one person that maybe is hyped a lot for because he's the first homegrown, and he's a guy that at the varsity there was all that fanfare, and he was talked up a bunch. But I think he really does have a lot of talent. Now, in terms of who he starts or who he has, more playing time over in the first team at the moment, it's going to be difficult to see. But, we've been saying this for maybe a couple of years where, hopefully in some more tournament runs and cup runs, we see him play a lot and see him play a larger part. And I think that's where he's really going to have to earn his medal, is in those and really showing and maybe challenging some of the guys on the first team for minutes and maybe usurping them for a game or two. That's where I think the progress could be made, especially if there's an injury or something like that. And if he can step in for, even a 5-game stretch or something like that, that's really, I think, a very large step for him. And I think he has a long-term future because a lot of people want to see him do well, but it is, he's at that kind of boiling point where he's got to show his professionalism. He's got to show what he can do on the pitch this season, or it is going to be kind of a breaking point. But that does it for the mailbag. Thank you guys for sending in those questions, and we're pretty much wrapping up. And this gets us to the question of the day.
And the question of the day is, in a fantasy scenario, which former 5-stripe would you like to bring back to Atlanta United at any point in time in their career? I guess for next season, whatever it is. Whatever player that's played for Atlanta United, which player would you bring back? I'm going to guess this is going to be a pretty one-sided poll because we're all going to say Miguel Almiron. There could be other people down there. So get down in the comments below and let us know what you guys have to say.
Yeah, but guys, that's it for the show today. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Smash that like button and share this video because it really does help us a lot. And for Tanner McLeod, I'm AJ. Thank you guys so much for watching.